And now it's time for This Week in Come Follow Me. We haven't officially gotten into the Doctrine and Covenants yet, but we're into this waiting period, and they're talking about the restoration. I'd be interested to hear, as you've been preparing and teaching your kids this week, what are some of the things that you've been teaching your kids about the restoration, or some of the focal points that you've been putting with your family?
Yeah, well, one of the things I've been talking to my kids about is kind of just a brief history of, from Christ to now. I've been reading this book called Marriage and Family in the Middle Ages, which is a very fascinating book. And it talks about Christianity, and it's spread over the world, right? But what it doesn't realize is it's also talking about, to a certain extent, is the apostasy, right? That break of authority and command from Christ, which led to a darker time in the world where religion and, the priesthood power was not on the earth. And now here we are in the restoration, where that's coming back and unfolding into the fullness of times. And that's where we're kind of prepping, is just that onboard into the restoration, where we can see Joseph Smith taking the plates and, translating them into the Book of Mormon, and then receiving that priesthood power and authority from the various figures that he does so. As he kicks off the restoration. So we're kind of focusing on the prequel, as it were, like that gap between the Bible and the Book of Mormon in history, where there was darkness for a time on one half of the planet, and the other half we see that, Christ is working his miracles.
Yeah. So you're getting into figures like Martin Luther, the invention of the printing press. I can't remember who was behind that.
Well, even Christopher Columbus, everyone,
Christopher Columbus,
Marco Polo, all these explorers who had the spirit of God with them, and various, leaders in various churches who helped break up and create the opportunity for the restoration to happen in the United States. Like that was a domino effect that started unfolding the second Christ ascended. Right.
Yeah.
That was growing and preparing, and all the way up until Joseph Smith received the golden plates. So, and the first vision.
Yeah, that's a great study plan.
Got to set the story.
I've been focusing on the proclamation that they came out with about the restoration of the church, nice. And kind of contrasting it with the other proclamation. So the proclamation on the family. So you look at that, and when it came out, everyone looked at it when it came out, and they were like, yeah, it's kind of a no-brainer. Men and women, they're different. They have their own roles. Yeah, everyone's on board with you. But now, fast forward, you look at it now, and you're like, holy smokes, that was pretty prophetic. It seems like they understood where we were going, and they were able to prepare us for that. And just saying, let's reinforce these truths. I kind of have a similar approach when it comes to this latest proclamation that they made, where I look at what happened with the last proclamation, and I assume that it's going to happen with this proclamation, where I think we're going to see a point in the future where we look back, and just as those truths were seen as common sense, and they were seen as kind of controversies at the time, and it developed into these big political controversial issues, I think we're going to see a similar pattern with the plain and precious truths that were restored from the gospel and this second proclamation that they've issued in a handful of years. So I think we're going to be looking back and having a similar moment of realization.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case, for sure. Yeah, that totally makes sense.
The other piece of the restoration, this proclamation that they came out with, is there's some wording in there that they invite everyone to come to know Jesus Christ as they know him specifically. And to know Jesus Christ at the level that an apostle knows Jesus Christ, I think, is a pretty powerful and significant gift. President Nelson has said that in coming days, there are going to be some of the greatest miracles ever experienced and seen, greater blessings, greater miracles than saints have known before in the past. And so I look at this as a message of hope as well. And as we're thinking about the new year, I think that is one of the greatest goals that we can give, not only to ourselves, but our families, is to try and come to know Jesus Christ exactly how the apostles do. I don't know that I'll make it quite to that level, but I think striving for that is going to be a worthy goal.
Yeah, I think that's a noble effort, right? And I think that's what we should be doing our whole life, is striving to know Christ just as they do. And I think it's achievable. It's difficult, very difficult, but achievable, right? So it's
Absolutely.
a great lifelong goal.
I think we're out of time. Until next week, I'm Hayden Holm, and this is Salty Saints.